He is Liaquat Ahamed, and the book is Lords of Finance, The Bankers Who Broke the World. Liaquat, great to have you here on Bloomberg. So what came first, your book or the financial crisis? Because there's so many comparisons that can be made between the two.
I conceived of my book 4 or 5 years ago, and I spent about the last 4 years working on it. It came out in January, which was good timing, I suppose, from my point of view. So my book came first, yes.
Do you find a lot of similarities between what went wrong in the Great Depression and the folks, the bankers, who were there at the time, and what happened today?
Well, the lead-up was eerily similar. Then we had a bubble in the stock market. This time it was in real estate. The bubble burst, causing a banking crisis in both cases. The difference, of course, is then in the 1920s, the central bankers took a sick patient and gave it precisely the wrong medicine and killed the patient. This time, the financial authorities have learnt their lesson, and they did everything to try to prevent the patient from collapsing. So they supported the banking system, they cut interest rates to the bone, and they allowed budget deficits to expand. So we have learned our lesson. We did learn our lessons about how to prevent a complete meltdown.
So Liaquat, it's Erik Schatzker here. What next? What next? Now, so we've learned a valuable lesson from the 1930s, or at least the 1920s, but did we learn all the lessons we needed to out of the experience of the 1930s?
Well, that's the that's the $60 trillion question here. During the 1930s, we got a strong recovery, but it was a recovery which was, one, characterized by still high unemployment, and two, characterized by beggar-thy-neighbor international policies. Countries put up trade barriers, they competed on currencies. We seem to be avoiding that, but we may not be. Unemployment remains obstinately high and is probably going higher. The compact between American companies and their workers seems to have changed. The American companies have used this recession to fire an unprecedented number of their employees. High unemployment is an environment that tends to provoke the worst sort of populism and nationalism, and that's what I worry about over the next 2 to 3 years.
Are there dangers, though, in comparing the experience of this decade with the 1930s? We've heard a great deal, as you know, about Ben Bernanke's studies of the Great Depression, Christina Romer's studies of the Great Depression. They're so guided by history. Might they go wrong at some point?
Well, you're exactly right. They may, we may make our own mistakes. So this time we've had an unprecedented expansion in budget deficits. We didn't then. Will that pose its own challenges? Because financing those budget deficits will eventually require us to raise taxes. So there's a whole series of different challenges associated with being successful in preventing a meltdown.
Liaquat, you also kind of talk about the personalities of these bankers, and you write about how their ambitions, limitations, and human nature lie at the very heart of global catastrophe, and you kind of liken them to the players today, Hank Paulson, Ben Bernanke, maybe Alan Greenspan. I mean, do you also kind of fault their ambitions, their limitations to getting us to where we are today and potentially what might happen here in the future, potentially another catastrophe?
Well, I think personality and policy are very intimately linked. We would not have had the sort of Fed policies throughout the 90s and early part of this decade without the personality of Alan Greenspan. The fact that we put him on a pedestal, we invested him with enormous amount of authority, and he developed this mystique. That said, I mean, everyone, and similarly during 2008, I think how we handled the crisis had a lot to do with the personality and character of Hank Paulson, the way he approached it deal by deal rather than dealing with it on a systemic basis, emerged from his background as a deal maker from Goldman Sachs.
How important is continuity when it comes to policymakers?
Well, actually less important, in the sense that the one lesson from Roosevelt was that he tried a lot of different things. Some of them contradictory, some of them dead ends. But he figured, look, I don't really know the solution, So I'm going to try lots of things, and things that work, I'm going to keep doing, and things that don't work, I'm going to stop doing. And that sort of willingness to sort of experiment and be open and to recognize that we really don't quite know how this machine, the economy, works fully.
Okay.
And that